Welcome back to Awakening Reformation, where Reformation awakens now. My name is Grant, and joined with me is Ericha, my beautiful wife, who is the weaker vessel.
Yeah, that was a little different this time.
I jacked it up.
It's okay.
Say hello.
Hey, y'all.
If you want to get to know more about us, we are part of the Reformed Rebel Network. Go subscribe to Reformed Rebel Network on social media, on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notified when we release new content. Like the Facebook page. If you like the content, comment, like, share, spread the news. And I forgot to mention it on the last episode, and maybe several before that, but if you want to financially support us and help us continue to do what we do and to help us do more in the future, go to patreon.com/reformedrebel and become a patron.
So,
and
for those of you who are listening and may not be able to tell, we're in our car again.
Yep.
We're doubling up episodes, trying to just be
cover
proactive.
topics that are on our mind too.
We're in a parking lot right now. We're going to get going, but there's a guy parked next to us who I'm pretty sure is just yelling other side. There you go. Don't look at him. Pretty sure he's just yelling cuss words out the window.
I ain't scared. We watched people fight in a parking lot again yesterday, remember?
Yeah, but Canadians are more aggressive than...
Way more than they lead on.
Just saying.
I know everyone says they're all nice, but...
I mean, there are some nice Canadians.
You want to talk about Table in the Wilderness a little bit while I back us out of here?
Sure.
All right, cool.
So, A Table in the Wilderness. Sorry, that guy's just distracting me.
His sweatshirt's distracting.
All of it's distracting. A Table in the Wilderness. It is a Eastertide Sabbath companion. So it will basically just be 4 weeks worth of content for your Sabbath enjoyment. There is a menu. There is a devotional, scripture readings. And it should have been released this week, correct?
I think the first week is already going to be released by the release of this episode. And...
Y'all, there's a person on the street corner with a guitar and like a full amp. It's a whole thing.
They have a music stand.
Where are we right now?
What world, what dimension did we just plop into?
So weird.
It's just like, the little grass medians that are in the middle of parking lots, and there's just like a little island of, there's somebody with just a guitar.
This is why we don't hit this lady. This is why we don't typically record on the road, because it's quite distracting.
As you can tell, staying focused is not easy.
We'll get out of this parking lot.
And maybe it will get better.
That guy almost walked into our car.
Yeah, I don't think he...
Literally, I feel like...
You know what, though? I'm happy there are all these people out. People need to get out of their homes.
Oh, no, that doesn't bother me.
Go shopping.
Like, literally nothing's happened to us all day until we tried to record this. And then all of a sudden, it was like all of the weird things at once.
It's very true.
Okay, so, A Table in the Wilderness. You can find it. It's free. It's great. If you're looking for something to do, the heart behind it truly was wanting to prepare our own children and our own hearts for Easter. We feel like there's tons and tons of stuff getting you ready and geared up for Christmas. And we really wanted Easter to be just as exciting and just as built up in our minds. So we thought we'd do Sabbath every weekend anyway. Let's use those Sabbath meditations to help us build our Easter anticipation. So that is A Table in the Wilderness. It is based off of Psalm 78.
Yep, Psalm 78.
Where it says the people complained against God and spoke and said, "Can he spread a table for us in the wilderness?"
Right.
That is a paraphrase, because I'm pretty sure I didn't say it exactly in that.
Yeah, can he spread a table in the wilderness? And then the psalm basically recounts each of the
ways
miracles
in which God did that.
That God did that. Water, bread, meat with the birds.
The quail, yeah.
The quail. And so basically answering the question.
We could have come out this way.
Why did we do that? I don't know. There's people, musicians, all kinds of things.
Anyway, so that's what's happening. Let me see. I'll do it.
You just slide it that way a little bit. There you go.
We're good.
Beautiful. All right.
We're going to lose our
So every Monday.
great quality here.
Right. Yeah, excuse the bumpiness. It's just like you're with us. That's all.
This is what Grant and I do anyway whenever we're in the car.
Yeah, we don't stop talking about this stuff.
We just kind of talk about all the things. So we might as well. We have a busy couple weeks ahead of us. So we're trying to get done as much as we can and use all of our time in a positive way.
Trying to be good stewards.
You're just going to have to be flexible, y'all.
So it'll be released every Monday, the menu and the devotionals. That way you can take that week to plan, go shopping. If you need to, for whatever reason, adjust the menu a little bit.
Maybe I should talk about that. Yeah, so the menu is easy. The recipes hopefully are simple. It's nothing super complicated. If you ever have an issue or something doesn't make sense, you can message me personally on Facebook or Instagram even, I guess. And yeah, we want you to open your homes. We want you to have people over either Saturday night or Sunday after church, whatever. Open your homes, be hospitable, and recount all the things that God has done for his people in the past and is doing for them currently. We want this to be not only spiritually beneficial for you, but also challenging you guys to open your homes and invite people in.
Yeah, Christianity is a very individual thing, but it is a community thing.
Right.
And so this is supposed to help with that.
So anyway, today, what are we talking about?
So we've been going through Theology of Family. We've talked about God's design for men, women, parenting, raising boys, raising girls, and we kind of wanted to bring it back around to the men-women thing and talk about just basic practical tips for marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Just all things marriage. And
that was the soda can. We are going to talk about parenting tips next week. So be prepared for that. This week we're going to talk about marriage first. I think we're going to call this episode Catch for Us the Foxes.
Right. So what verse is that, babe? And what does that mean?
I should know where it is. It's in Song of Solomon. I don't know exactly where.
It's not a big book. Read the whole book. You'll find it.
But it says, catch for us the foxes that ruin our vineyards that are in bloom. And what it means is that oftentimes we'll put up big fences and gates and stuff around our gardens trying to keep out deer or animals that would ruin the things that we're trying to plant and grow. But oftentimes it's the little foxes that creep in underneath the fence that eat away at the things that are in bloom, the things that we're trying to cultivate and grow. So in our marriage, we often put up big fences around things like, adultery or porn or whatever. We know we have certain rules or whatever in place to prevent those big things from happening, but oftentimes it's the little things, the little foxes that ruin our vineyards. And so that is what we're going to talk about today in a very small dose because we don't have a lot of time. Yep.
So this should be a little bit of a shorter episode, but we hopefully will kind of go all over the map and just give you guys a lot of practical tips.
And probably a lot of this is just our personal stuff too. So
right, just what we have found to be a blessing as we've practiced it in our life.
This could obviously be different a little bit from couple to couple. So if you hear me speaking about my husband is not your husband. So how you actually apply this could be a little bit different. So just bear that in mind. But they're just principles, hopefully, that will be helpful to you. So what are some for you? What are some of the little foxes that you think ruin or can ruin things that are planted?
So I think one thing for men, number one, I would say, is to eliminate boredom.
Yeah, that's a good one.
By eliminating boredom, though, I do not mean turn on the Xbox.
Is that even a thing anymore, Xboxes?
Yeah, but it's Xbox 79 now or whatever. I don't know. PlayStation 17 is, I don't even know. They don't even have discs anymore. So I've heard. But
we're so out of touch.
But I love it. But I have talked with many a men who get into trouble because they're just bored and find themselves on social media bored, find themselves wasting hours and hours and hours on video games bored. And are they serving in church? No. was the last time they read a book on any kind of theology or church history or something. Very, very long time, or never. And those are things that, or even just
so
how to be a better provider or something like that.
Yeah, like get rid of things that are expendable and replace them with things that are actually building something.
Right. So
building your mind, building your estate, building your family.
Yes, exactly. And think about something with lasting value, right? Like you don't buy a car to establish your wealth. Why? Because it depreciates.
Right.
Right? But you would buy something like
a house
or land, or people buy gold because it doesn't just sit and deteriorate. It actually maintains its constitution over the years. And so rather than wasting 10 hours on a video game, spend 10 hours building something or bettering your home or something, but while listening to a book on church history on Audible, or podcasting, or just reading, just investing time rather than spending it.
And sometimes it can be something so simple as like, you're unhealthy, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like so even true. That is better for you.
That'd be part of it too.
Anyway, that's helpful.
But just refusing the boredom thing. Like if you do find yourself bored, then figure out how you can serve your church, how you can go preach the gospel somewhere, go evangelize, do something that is you being proactive and you being taking the initiative with something rather than just sitting there being a passive being.
Well, and this is probably going to be controversial, but we always do this. So oftentimes I think what men do when they're bored is they will look around and see what needs to be done. And that is good. But men aren't supposed to be domestic. Right. Like it's not their role to be the domestic keeper of the home.
Right.
So if you're bored, I have heard pastors say, ask your wife what you can do to help. And I'm not saying that's always wrong. But what I'm saying is, like, you can do something with your time that is building your home without being the keeper of the home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Like,
it's the difference.
It's far better to look at like how to lead your family, like reading a book about how to lead your family spiritually. That would be better for your family than just folding laundry for your wife. Yeah.
And it's the difference between you have kind of a servant slave mentality where you just say, what's the job I have to do?
Right.
Versus just thinking, what work can I go do right now? Or what can I go build right now? What can I go make better? What can I go take dominion of right now?
Yep. That's good.
So, leader rather than servant. But the boredom thing is where most men get in trouble. That's when temptations arise. That's when relationship online happens because you're just bored and you're flipping through social media or having conversations you shouldn't have. And there's so many men who get into trouble because rather than serving the church and spending time reading or whatever, they were bored and ended up doing something like blowing time on social media, video games, or whatever. And that led to the destruction of their marriage or something like that.
My suggestion, my little fox, is similar, kind of goes along with it, and along the same lines of being domestic. One of the little foxes that I think creeps in so often is this idea that our husbands should be our helpmate.
Okay, yeah.
And what I mean by that is, especially when you have a bunch of young kids at home and you're tired, you're exhausted, you've been changing diapers, you have been making meals, doing dishes, what seems like for a bajillion years, and then your husband comes home and he's been working all day and you just want him to help you match socks.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's sinful, and I'm not saying there's never a place for that, so don't hear me say that. What I'm saying is it's not his job. It's your job to match the socks. You are the keeper of the socks. Your husband is not. Your husband is the keeper of you. So we need to be very careful not to look at our husbands sitting there at the dinner table, just, having, a beer, relaxing, whatever. And the natural tendency for us is to be upset. Like, don't you see all the things that need to be done around here? How can you just be sitting there? And we feel super frustrated, like he's not helping us with what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Once again, not saying a man can't help his wife. What I'm saying is, it's not his job. It's your job. So you need to figure out how to be a good home manager. Sometimes being a good home manager is learning when to not match the socks and just say, I'm going to sit down at the table with my husband and have a beer with him.
There you go.
Like, sometimes that is actually being the best, home keeper you can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's learning to just put on a movie and match socks while your kids are watching, I don't know, what do kids watch nowadays? Paw Patrol or something.
Sure.
Like, sometimes being a good home manager is just learning how to manage your time better so that you're not making your husband the helper and the keeper of the home alongside you. He's not your assistant. He's not your helpmate.
Yeah.
The man was not made for woman. The woman was made for man.
Yeah, and I think to go along with that, men, rather than thinking you need to do her job, I think men should be thinking about things that they can do to help their wife love their job as a homemaker too.
Yeah.
So if she wants to, because I know guys can get
You can go forward.
Oh, good. I know guys can get real finicky about money. And if she's like, man, I really, you just bought a cast iron thing the other day.
I did. I just bought a new little cast iron
like
skillet.
something like cast iron. Like, I don't cook, y'all. But what Erica's told me, like, cast irons are gold for the cookers. And anyway, but they're kind of expensive because they last forever. And I could just see a guy getting finicky about it, like, fork over the money, like, help her out to do the things that you do want her to do with more joy and with more ease. You know what I mean? Do it.
Right.
Something, and you're the one that should be the provider who's bringing home that bacon. And so you're the one that says, oh yeah, go get it. Right? Give her that freedom to be that home manager that God's called her to be, with more ease and joy and all that.
Well, and I think the problem on both ends too is that we think that marriage isn't work. It should all just be love and joy. But like, the role that God has given to man and woman it's work. It's going to be hard. It's going to be denying yourself, picking up your cross. Like, God calls us to die.
Yeah.
And so it's going to feel like death a lot of the time. And that's actually the best thing for us, to feel like death. Yeah.
Well, and that is the pattern of creation. This is James Jordan 101. If you want to learn kind of the symbology of Genesis chapter 1. But the pattern of creation is darkness, light, darkness, light, darkness, light. And so our lives are constantly going to be death and resurrection, death and new life, death and recreation. And Jesus said it, right? Die to self and come follow me. And I think Paul is the one that said in Colossians that we are being recreated according to the image of Christ. This is just how things go. And it's pretty clear to every married couple that marriage is one of the primary means that God uses to sanctify us and to recreate us and to give us many opportunities to die and be resurrected again.
Right.
So expect that. And then when there is a hard time, embrace it. In the Army, we used to always say, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Just kind of hang, like, hey, this is how you grow. This is how things get better. This is how things mature, is through these tough little moments.
So one other little fox that I think is the fault of both men and women. So you've kind of jumped on men, I've jumped on women. One that I think both men and women are equally responsible for is an immature faith. And what I mean by that, you and I have seen this many times in people that we've counseled throughout the years and discipled and stuff. Sometimes couples have different levels of spiritual maturity, and this can happen for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the husband's more mature, sometimes the wife is more mature. It's really hard when you're in that place on either end.
Right.
And we have seen really smart, godly men whose wives are dumb, like spiritually ignorant. And then we've seen women who have husbands who are disinterested in theology be incredibly brilliant theologically.
Right.
And so this can lead to all kinds of frustration and arguments, especially with how you set up a home, because they have different worldviews or whatever. But this is something that Christian spouses need to get on the same page. And it's very important because it actually is incredibly unifying when you and your spouse believe the same things theologically.
True.
Especially when you have kids, because if you want to homeschool, if you want your wife to stay home and raise your kids and homeschool them, like all these things are theological issues.
Right.
And if your wife doesn't see things theologically like you do, it's going to be not a fun time in your home.
Yeah. Well, so I think usually why it creates issues when one is more mature than the other is just insecurity. You feel intimidated by that other person, and you're feeling insecure that you can't, you just avoid it because you're inadequate or whatever.
Yeah, it can be. And it can just be apathy too. I just don't care enough to study about this.
That's true too. And I think the advice for the more mature one is to never accept the immaturity of your other spouse. Don't ever think it's just gonna stay that way, and don't ever think that's just they're just not a big reader.
Right.
And I'll shout out the Barinsmas right now, because Jay, who is an avid listener, Jay and Amy, shout out. He wasn't a big reader, and God, kind of
prodded him along.
Yeah, prodded him along, brought him to a new level of maturity in his faith, and then now he's devouring books. So and
Amy's growing in leaps and bounds because he's leading her well and teaching her what he knows. But I think that's the pattern. The ideal pattern is that a husband leads spiritually,
right,
and then he teaches his wife, and that is what even Paul says. If a woman has a question, she should go to her husband, assuming he is more spiritually mature and able to get to the bottom of it.
That is the assumption, isn't it?
Right.
And
so that is the ideal.
Yeah, and for guys, if your wife is the less mature one, then you just need to...
Then it's your fault.
It is your fault. Well, your responsibility.
Yes.
It's her fault, your responsibility. And what you need to do is never give up on her maturity. You should never settle that that's just her and she just doesn't like this stuff, or she won't read a theology book with me or whatever.
And maybe she won't, but you can still talk to her about things you're learning.
Right.
It'd be far better for you to do that than to just sit around and talk about who got booted off of The Bachelor.
Exactly.
Yeah. And literally,
Speaking of a rose, Isaiah talks about the rose of Sharon.
Maybe don't do that. That'll just annoy her.
But I think you said you had a good tip there, is talk about what you're learning. So if you're reading a book, you can go to your wife and just bring it up and just say, hey, listen to this super cool thing I read this morning. So and then just do it. Well,
and to be really honest, for a lot of young moms especially, it's hard to read a book. You're just so busy, it's hard to read a book. So this is why podcasting is great for young moms. There really isn't an excuse for you to not be able, you can put a podcast on while you shower. You can put a podcast on while you're doing dishes, while you're cooking dinner, whatever it is. There is time in your day that you could put on a podcast. So husbands, if your wife doesn't love reading, rather than giving her a super, thick stack of books, maybe encourage her.
Yeah, to podcast.
Listen to this. It's only 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and we'll talk about it when I get home from work.
Right.
So
that'd be really good.
Anyway, we're at our destination. Just some things to think about.
Yeah.
Just some little foxes that can
snipe those foxes.
Creep in and cause. And if this is not a thing if none of these things we talked about are issues for you, you are the one who should be doing the podcast.
Or maybe we said it and they're like, yep, and that's what's, helped us in our marriage. Hopefully they can agree, right?
Yeah.
That'd be good. All right. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it, you guys. Again, go subscribe, like, comment, help us get this content in front of more people's faces.
Yep.
And we always pray that you guys would remain steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain. Until next time, get woke.
Bye.